swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
We're going on the record. The time is 8:56 a.m. Today's date is November 17th. This is media unit number 1 of the video recorded deposition of Matt Chason. This is taken in the matter of Deposition versus Milwaukee Public Schools. This case is filed in the state of Wisconsin, Department of Workforce Development, Equal Rights Division, case number CR 2021-00861. Our deposition is being held at Cross Law Firm, located at 845 North 11th Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My name is Mike DeGell, and I am recording the video for today's deposition. At this time, I'll ask the counsel to state their name, appearance, affiliation for the record. Then the court reporter will swear in the witness.
Savian Grinnell from Belo, Feder, Bukema, Olson, and Felite on behalf of Matt Chason, third-party witness.
Attorney Ryan Maloney of Von Briesen and Roper appears on behalf of the respondent in this case. Go ahead.
Great. Ben Hitchcock Cross appearing with and for the complainant, Deborah Keither.
And before we get started, I just want to put 2 objections on the record.
Please.
For you. First, we object to the videographer to the extent that that is not the official transcript. We reserve the right to object to that and preserve any objections with regard to the official transcript, namely that the official transcript is a stenographic transcript we have here today. Second, we object to this deposition because it is being taken after the close of discovery. Respondent is objecting because complainant has taken the position that respondent is unable to depose Deborah Keither because discovery is closed. That is despite the fact that on 2 separate occasions, respondent asked for dates to depose Dr. Keither. Both of those requests were made prior to the close of discovery. Also, Attorney Hitchcock Cross had provide dates for the deposition of Dr. Keither prior to the close of discovery, but never did so. As such, if respondent is precluded from deposing Dr. Keither despite its 2 requests to do so prior to the close of discovery, then complainant should similarly be precluded from taking this deposition after the close of discovery.
Great. Anything else? Anyone? Okay. Mr. Chason, are you ready?
Yes.
Great. Can you just say and spell your name for the record, please?
Matt Chason, Chason, 2 T's for Matt.
And do you work for MPS?
Yes, I do.
In what capacity?
My title is the Senior Director of the Office of Accountability and Efficiency.
And what is the Office of Accountability and Efficiency?
It is a separate arm of governance underneath the School Board of Directors.
Okay, and so are you separate from management?
Yes, I'm separate from both the Office of Board Governance and from the administration of the superintendent.
Okay, so you are not directly supervised by the board, is that correct?
I report directly to the board, but I do not report to the superintendent.
Okay, and are you managed by anybody?
By the board.
Okay, and is that collectively or singly?
It would be as the body.
Okay, so it's fair to say that the board issues you instructions from time to time that then you are charged with following, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And do individual board members ever give you responsibilities?
They can make asks to do so, yes.
And are you required to follow those instructions?
Under policy, I can refuse, at which time they could take an affirmative vote to direct our office to take whatever action.
Okay. And how often do individual board members give you directions?
Objective form vague at the time.
It sort of does peaks and valleys. It can be several a month, depending. And sometimes we'll go through laws where we don't get any specific asks from board members.
Okay. How long have you been in charge of the Office of Accountability?
I believe I have held this title since the middle of 2019.
Middle of 2019. So it's fair to say that you've held this for approximately 3 years?
Approximately 3 years.
Okay. So in those 3 years, how often per year has it happened that individual board members give you directives?
Ballpark, probably at least a dozen a year.
Okay. And are those coming from the president of the board or other members?
It can come from any board member, president or otherwise.
Okay. In Dr. Keither's case, did the board direct you to do anything?
The board did not direct me to do anything.
Did any individual board members ask you to do anything with regard to Dr. Keither?
No board member asked me to do anything specific with Dr. Keither.
Okay. Do you know Dr. Keither?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Dr. Keither?
Dr. Keither is an employee of Milwaukee Public Schools.
Okay. Did she have any relationship with you in your capacity as head of the Office of Accountability?
Yes, she did.
When did that first occur?
The first, I think, interaction we had was, I forget the exact date. I believe it would have been November of 2019. She had approached me with concerns about the appointment of Dr. Holliday.
Okay, and at that time, was it just her approaching you? As far as you understood, was she coming to you with a complaint on her own behalf or on the behalf of others?
It was on or around that time that Ms. Keither appeared. There were other individuals who also appeared with a similar concern.
Okay, and what do you mean by appeared?
They came to my office and asked to see me.
In person?
Correct.
Okay. And where's your office located?
It's on the second floor of the Central Service Building on 52nd and Lake.
Where's the superintendent's office located, if you know?
That would be the northwest wing of that building.
What floor?
The second floor.
Okay. About how far are you from the superintendent's office, physically?
That's a long hallway. 70, 80 yards.
Okay. So, it would take about a minute for you to walk from your office to the superintendent's office. Does that sound right?
That could be.
Okay. Is there a direct line of sight from the superintendent's office to your office?
I don't believe there's a direct line of sight.
Okay. Have you ever asked employees who come to your office to come through some secondary entrances?
I've advised them that if they're uncomfortable, especially leaving my office or approaching the office with other people in the hallway, that I'm happy to either have them wait until the people who are either standing in the hallway or walking the hallway to exit so that it doesn't invite additional sort of, hey, I saw this person in the OAE, and I've advised them too that when I'm expecting them, I'll do everything I can to make sure I can receive them at the door to let them come in without standing and waiting out there or knocking on the door.
If you know, why would an MPS employee be concerned about being seen to go to your office?
Took the form of question called speculation.
They would be concerned that their appearance at my office would bring scrutiny to them in terms of whatever their concern is or about whomever their concern might be about.
Have MPS employees generally told you directly of those concerns?
Employees have shared their concerns with me, yes.
About the fear of being seen to come into your office?
Yes.
Okay. Has Debbie Keither expressed those concerns to you?
I don't recall, and only because most of our interaction subsequent to that date was electronic.
Okay.
Only because it was the pandemic.
So, how did you meet with her other than in November of 2019?
I don't believe in person,
Okay.
but certainly through electronic methods, phone and otherwise.
Okay. And you had extensive communications with her after November of 2019, correct?
Yes, I believe our probably next touch point would have been November of 2020.
Mhm.
And subsequent to that date, I think we had whatever extensive conversations.
Okay, and what between November of 19 and November of 2020, what communications, if any, did you have with Dr. Keither?
I don't recall any.
Okay, so it's fair to say that in November of 2019, she came to you with concerns about Dr. Holliday, and what were those concerns?
I think I'm trying to make sure I disaggregate Dr. Keither's concern from the others who had appeared that day.
Okay.
But generally, I can safely say the concern was that it was a bad fit for either management style, leadership style, and or other, I think just the workplace in terms of uncomfortableness in the space concerns.
Okay, is this about Dr. Holliday or somebody else?
It was about Dr. Holliday.
Okay. And only about Dr. Holliday?
I only remember Dr. Holliday.
Okay. And you said that other people appeared at your office on that same day, in fact. Is that right?
If not the same day, in days preceding or very shortly thereafter.
Okay, and about how many people appeared?
I think no more than 4.
Okay, so 4 is a fair number?
I think so.
Okay, who appeared?
I only specifically remember Dr.
Hold on a
Keith.
second, hold on a second.
I'm sorry.
Before you say that, I'm gonna object to the extent that he's asking for confidential information for other individuals who came to his office, and to the extent that those individuals' confidentiality concerns are at issue here, and I would advise to be cautious about divulging information about confidential information about third parties who are not present here today, not involved in this lawsuit, and who have not waived any confidentiality they may have.
So you can make objections all you want, but you can't make speaking objections. And so, for example, there, not only did you make a speaking objection, but you also gave him legal advice. You said it very quite clearly that I advise that this is confidential. You are not in a position, you are not appearing here today as his attorney. You are not, you're just giving legal advice, and you're just, what you're doing here, besides being improper and making improper speaking objections, is you're laying bare the fact that you are, in fact, working with Mr. Chason and representing him. So
I absolutely did not say that I represent him. I absolutely did not state that I am working with Mr. Chason. I'm simply stating that there are third parties' interests at play here, and they have privacy interests, and they have not, to my knowledge, they have not waived any privacy interests. And to the extent that divulging their confidential information is a violation of their privacy interests, I'm making a record of that.
great, you need to stop making speaking objections.
All right, Ben, I'll make the objections I need to, and we can address them as need be.
Okay, can you read out the
Yeah, thank
last
you.
question, please?
Okay, it was answered. Okay. Hold on one second. Okay, and you said that other people appeared at your office on the same day. In fact, is that right? Answer, if not the same day, in days preceding or very shortly thereafter. Question, and about how many people appeared? I think no more than 4. Question, so 4, fair number. Answer, I think so. Question, who appeared? Answer, I only specifically remember Dr. Keither. And then dashes.
I only specifically remember Dr. Keither and Rochelle Sandrin.
Okay.
I do think more than those 2 individuals that appeared, but I don't recall. I don't recall who those other individuals were.
At least 2 others.
I believe so.
Okay. And Dr. Keither is also known as Whistleblower B. Is that right?
In a presentation that I gave to the board,
Mhm.
I actually I opaqued or masked her identity actually as Whistleblower A.
Okay. And Rochelle Sandrin, she would be Whistleblower B in that same report. Is that correct?
I believe yes, yes, that's my recollection. I'm not sure.
Okay. Why did you mask their identities? Why did you at least mask Dr. Keither's identity and possibly Rochelle Sandrin's identity in this report?
The intent was to keep their confidentiality and anonymity for as long as I could through the process.
And from who?
Really from anybody other than myself.
Okay. Does that include the board?
Yes, it does.
Does that include Superintendent Posley?
Yes.
Does that include Dr. Holliday?
Yes.
Okay, why?
I believe that's my policy obligation under the whistleblower policy, is to maintain that to the greatest extent possible, or at least that's how I've interpreted and implemented that policy.
Okay. So focusing on that policy for a moment, is your office, or put it another way, your office doesn't just receive direct managerial control, correct?
Check the form of question.
There's nobody other than you in charge of your office. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I report to the board, but yes, otherwise I manage the office. That is correct.
Okay. And then you are guided by policies, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And who draws up these policies?
I'm checking foundation.
The policies are approved and codified by the board.
Okay. Who interprets the policies?
Check the form of question.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Sure. The policies.
Did you say who interprets? I'm
Yes. Is there any time that there is a question in your mind about the meaning of a particular policy?
Sorry. Can you say that question again?
Is there any time that there is a question in your mind about the meaning of a particular policy?
Only in so much as I, wanting to make sure that whatever the implementation is true to the letter and intent of it.
Okay, how do you know what the intent of the whistleblower policy is?
By a plain read of the language, I guess.
Okay, and that's, who does that?
In my implementation of it would be me. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's just, I just after the form.
Okay, and do you seek guidance from anybody else when you are interpreting the policy?
I haven't.
Okay, so it's fair to say that you are the only one who interprets this policy, is that correct?
The form misstates the prior testimony.
In my implementation of it, yeah.
Okay. So it's fair to say then that as far your office, you are the one who's implementing the policy and executing the policy at your office. Is that correct?
As one of the individuals named with the responsibility of taking receipt of whistleblower concerns, yes.
Okay. And are there other people who are named as able to take whistleblower concerns?
Yes.
Okay. And who are those other officers?
The board president, the superintendent, and then also the board clerk.
Okay. And to your knowledge, why was your office created?
Check the foundation.
Really to enhance fiscal oversight of the organization and bring fiscal transparency.
Okay. And what does that mean to you?
It's heavily weighted in making sure that the financial managers of the district have the fiscal transparency that the board felt was requisite when they drafted and created the office.
Okay. And so what do you do to ensure that fiscal transparency?
There's a number of things we do in terms of review of the financial documents, of budgets, of AF&P materials through which contracts, budget adjustments appear, independent reporting to the board then of any particular items that we see that might be, we think, should be brought to the board's attention. And then additionally, the office is responsible for implementing the supplier diversity, historically underutilized businesses, communities in need, which is a local employer preference program, and then the student employment portions in our contract client service area.
Okay. Where does whistleblower investigations fit into that?
It would fit into my purview as the senior director.
Okay. As senior director, how much of your job is spent investigating whistleblower complaints?
That's another one tends to do peaks and valleys, but it has at times been, and the question was, I think, the percentage of time.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it would be sort of based on a snapshot, but there have been times when I've gone weeks straight on only whistleblower stuff.
Okay. Was that the case with Dr. Keither?
Yes, it was.
Okay, for about how long?
3 or 4 weeks, I want to say.
What time period was that?
This has been the first several weeks of January.
Okay. So it's fair to say that you
What
were
year?
Oh, sorry.
2020. Is that right?
The 2021.
2021.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So it's fair to say that in January of 2021, you were working full-time on Dr. Keither's whistleblower investigation.
If not full-time, nearly full-time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you, as your experience in your position, do you know if the MPS whistleblower policy is legally binding?
Objective Form Foundation.
Sorry, did you say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was I was about to object, but saying objection.
Great.
I guess I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, and why not?
I think that it obligates me to implement the policy, and certainly I'm bound in that way, but I guess in terms of legally binding, I'm not sure what that.
Okay. So do you feel that it's part of your job duties to investigate whistleblower?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you know that?
By the read of the language of that policy.
Okay. So your interpretation of the policy.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh.
Has anybody ever told you not to investigate whistleblowers?
No.
Has anybody told you to investigate whistleblowers?
No one's no one's ever directed me to investigate whistleblowers.
Okay. Have you ever brought a whistleblower complaint to the MPS board?
Yes, I have.
Okay. How many whistleblower complaints have you brought to the MPS board during your time as head of the Office of OAE?
I think. Hold on a second here. Five.
Okay. And is that including Dr. Keither and Rochelle Chandran?
Are you referring to the whistleblower B?
Yes.
Then yes, that would be inclusive.
I appreciate that distinction. Based on your presentation of whistleblower complaints to the board, what action, if any, did the board take?
Objective Form vague as to what whistleblower complaint.
The outcomes have generally been, well, I guess it's case by case. So, depending on the nature of the concern, there have been, I guess, dismissal of staff as a result.
Okay. So let's go through the five here. Who was the first one that you brought to the board?
Again, going to object to the extent that it's asking for him to divulge information which is confidential of third parties.
The first one I brought was regarding Dan Chason.
Can you spell that last name, please?
I'm hoping I'm getting it right. Chanen.
Thank you. And what was his concern?
It had to do with general workplace toxicity and what may have been a fraternization issue with an employee.
Okay. And to be fair, he had a relationship that was beyond the bounds of ordinary friendship with a subordinate. Is that right?
That was the allegation.
Okay. And that was against Mr. Chaden?
That is correct.
Okay, so who brought the concern to you for that complaint?
Again, same objection about divulging confidential information of third parties who are not here.
I believe that was brought to my attention by Leah Scopter.
Okay. And at that time, was Mr. Chanin the head of HR?
Yes, I believe that was his title.
Okay, and what happened as a result of you bringing this complaint to the board?
I believe the superintendent at the time, Dr. Darian Driver, then conducted, I guess, her own investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And then subsequent to that, I believe Mr. Chain was separated from the district.
And obviously, Mr. Chanin identifies as male, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge.
Okay, and do you know what race Mr. Chanin is?
I believe he's Caucasian.
Okay. If we can go to the second complaint that you brought to the board, please.
That was involving...
Well, then if you're gonna, well, first of all, I object to the question, because there's no question. Just said, can we go to the next complaint? But to the extent he's asking for information concerning this complaint, I again would object to the extent that it's calling for information which is confidential to third parties who have not agreed to our knowledge to have their confidential information disclosed here today.
Great. So, do you understand the question?
I'm
Well,
sorry.
I'll just be happy to.
I'm sorry.
Who? What was the nature of the second complaint that you brought to the board?
That one was involving Himanshu Parikh.
And could you spell that, please?
I'm going to apologize if I get it wrong. Himanshu, Himanshu, and Parikh, I believe, was Parikh. I apologize if I got that wrong.
Of course. And what position did that person hold at MPS at that time, if any?
I believe he was the chief of HR at the time.
The same as Mr. Chanin.
I believe so.
Okay. And what was the nature of the allegation against Mr. Parikh?
It was generally a toxic workplace environment.
Okay. Okay. And what action, if any, did the board take in response to this complaint?
The board asked that the city attorney do a review of my findings that I brought to the board, and then subsequent to that, Mr. Parikh was separated from the district.
Based on the findings of the city attorney's office?
Based on my findings that they had asked the city attorney to sort of review.
Okay. Did the city... What was the result of the city attorney's review? If any?
That they substantiated a toxic workplace environment.
Okay, and what does toxic workplace environment mean to you?
An unhealthy work environment, people fear of just additional scrutiny in their work.
No. And in this case, was there an inappropriate sexual relationship?
No.
No. Okay. Can a toxic work environment contain discrimination, to your knowledge?
Check the form foundation. Funding.
State the question again. I'm sorry.
Can a toxic work environment contain discrimination to your knowledge?
I could.
Okay. And the race of Mr. Parikh, if you know?
I'm not sure the right classification. Indian Asian descent. I'm sorry. I don't know what the.
Sure. And I'm sure we can agree that as long as you tell the truth, there can't be a wrong answer here.
Okay.
So are we okay to move forward on that basis?
Yeah.
Great. There is a third complaint, correct? That you brought to the board?
Yes.
Okay, and who was that complaint against?
Same objection to the extent that it's, well, not to the extent, objection that he's asking this witness to divulge confidential information of third parties who are not here today and have not waived their right to privacy on those issues.
The third one would have been a matter regarding Dr. Holliday.
Okay, and who made that complaint?
I think the starting point would have been Dr. Keither.
Okay. Were there more people who made complaints against Dr. Holliday for that issue?
In the capacity that other people had approached me and just raised general concerns.
Okay. And these are general concerns against Dr. Holliday?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sure we'll go back to that one. But can we go on to the fourth one? Who was that complaint against?
Same objection to the extent that it's asking the witness to divulge confidential information of third parties who have not waived or otherwise agreed to have their confidential information divulged here today.
The fourth one actually was my discussing with the board the Dr. Keither matter.
Okay. And what's different? I'm sorry, I might have got my numbering confused here. No, the third one was also Dr. Keither about Holliday?
I would argue there was intersectionality there, but I discussed them in separate fashion with the board on the same evening.
Okay. So it's that would have been on January 21st or some other day?
January the 21st of 2021.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And so it's fair to say that you brought issue 3 and 4 to the board, both from Dr. Keither, both on January 21st?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What about the fifth one?
The fifth
Check the
one,
form of question.
I believe you're referring to the fifth in the number of 5 that I referred to.
Exactly.
That one was a concern that had come from Calvin Furman.
Okay.
And also I interject the objection to the extent that it's calling for information that's confidential to third parties who have not waived that confidence.
Okay. And what was the nature of the complaint from Calvin Furman?
Twofold, in that he had concerns about what would have been a toxic environment under Chief Marla Bernard, but then I believe he also raised the concern about possible fraternization between Chief Bernard and Dr. Posley.
And Dr. Who?
Dr. Posley, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay. And how did you receive the complaint from Calvin Furman?
I believe it was in person.
Okay. Did he write anything with that complaint?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And did he give it to you at that time?
I believe he gave it to me in person.
Okay.
I think.
And to your knowledge, was Calvin Furman employed by MPS at that time when he gave you,
Yes.
when you met? Okay. But then, do you know if he left shortly thereafter? Or should we just say subsequently thereafter?
Subsequently, yes.
Okay. When did you receive this complaint from Calvin Furman?
I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact date. It would have been in, I believe, in one of the last 3 months of 2022.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't recall the date.
It's no problem. But we're clear that the day that he gave you the document, the day of the meeting, are likely the same date.
I believe so.
Okay. What did you take any steps to investigate his complaint?
I actually brought it to the attention of the board, And when I said I brought to the attention of the board, I said that I had gotten a concern, that I asked that the board permit me to obtain an outside investigator to investigate.
Okay. How did you communicate that request to the board?
It was in a closed session, and I forget the date, just presuming you were going to ask.
Fair enough. So they, this is in a closed session with the board. Is that alternatively called an executive session?
Yes,
Are those synonymous terms?
I have used them synonymously.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So, you brought this to their attention in a closed session. How did they respond, if at all?
They authorized me to work with the board clerk to obtain an external investigator basically on the board's behalf at that point.
How did they communicate that desire to you?
I guess by consensus of discussion?
And did that consensus happen at the closed session?
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever a formal decision to back that consensus made in public,
Just a formal question.
to your knowledge?
I don't recall.
Okay. So the board clerk, who is that person?
Dr. Jacqueline Mann.
Okay. So what steps, if any, did you and Jacqueline Mann take to obtain an outside investigator?
I believe we reached out to I believe first there was an attempt to reach out to I think this was the firm. I believe it was someone at Bulow Vetter.
Okay.
But then subsequent to that